So before we get started, a little bit about ourselves. As Katie mentioned, my name is Erica, and I'm Director of Sales and Marketing at a company called the Vertex Project for over 4 years now. Also know many of you from producing events like CyberWarCon and SleuthCon, and proud to also be a board member of the KC7 Foundation. So if you tuned in yesterday, yeah.
My name is Michael Graven. I've been in security for about 35 years, and the left picture is halfway through my career, and the right picture is a couple of years ago. I started off building and running systems and networks for large and small organizations. In about 2005, my girlfriend said, "I'm moving to DC. What are you doing?" And I gave several answers until I found the right one, which was, "I'm moving to DC with you and becoming a sales engineer." We're married and we have a 16-year-old. So in that last 20 years, I worked at a couple of places at Mandiant, CrowdStrike, Expel, a few others. And although I'm originally from California, I live in Minnesota now. You can find me on LinkedIn, and please endorse me for Tire, for I am tired.
So today we're going to get started, but what I want to drive home today is what we want to discuss and share with you is we want to talk about some of the ways actors use legitimate sales and marketing tactics for malicious purposes. And as we get into this deeper, we'll also share some practices, best practices, but also things that you can take with you in your day-to-day work to secure the world from bad actors. So something that we want to just give you some background on is the evolution of sales and marketing over the last couple of years. A lot of this is due to digital commerce, and a lot of maybe the things that we'll talk about over the next few slides might seem a little duh.
You'd think so, but it turns out to be surprisingly difficult to do sort of modern sales and marketing movements in organizations that either have a history of doing older sales processes or which organizations are getting larger. So we can talk a little bit about how some of those changes in customer expectation have driven changes in the technical landscape that allows people like marketers and sales to better interact with customers.
And a lot of this has been driven by the fact that, sales and marketing tactics, as we know it, were designed and into, the way it used to be offline.
Yeah, Mad Men, right? Here's some gum. We want you to buy this gum, and so we're going to buy a bunch of ads for it. Well, Sims are not gum, it turns out.
So so traditional sales and marketing is what we, refer to where there's a marketing department that's separate from a sales department. So two separate organizations, two separate departments, where marketing was traditionally and has traditionally been known to be the ones responsible for brand awareness, lead generation, and then there being a handoff to sales for sales to come in and close the deal. And in recent years, there's been a call to action from several organizations, Gartner, and just in the industry to move towards more aligned practices. And that's what we refer to as account-based marketing or ABM.
So a big sort of commonly known difference for this is who all has seen Glengarry Glen Ross, with the always be closing A, B, C, right? And the leads come in on the cards. That was how you sold, in that case, boiler room stocks. That was sort of the dominant selling model up until, 15, 20 years ago?
Yeah. And the other, I think, good way that I've heard to describe the distinction between them is traditional sales and marketing was like casting, using fishing as a metaphor, casting a wide net, and account-based marketing is more like spear fishing.
So when it comes around, so the way that you do spear fishing effectively today is to figure out where the things that you want to catch are going to be. Where are your clients? What companies are likely to need the kind of products and services that you're selling if you're a security company? And how can you engage the right people at that organization? So we call that account-based marketing.
And effectively, it's this marketers and salespeople collaborating on a shared strategy.
And that shared strategy is important because with fewer handoffs or without a clear handoff from like I made the lead, now you go turn the lead into a deal. You have to operate from the same set of data. That the data is the part that marketers and salespeople need to work together, and that may sound a little familiar when you think about it in the context of threat actors. Today, we see there's still sort of a funnel, right? There are more people in the world who are interested in your product than can buy it. And that funnel of there are lots of potential clients all the way down to these are the ones that have become our customer and may become repeat customers in the future is called a funnel. We won't go too much into it now, but if you want to talk about funnels in Slack with me, I'm super excited about that.
And just for everyone's awareness, all of the slides, all of the reports that we reference, whether it's sales marketing or in our case studies, we have several threat reports that we have referenced. That's all available via the link that I'm going to share later at the end. So if you missed something or want to dive deeper into any one of these slides, you'll have that information. But so yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah, so there's a maturity model for pretty much everything, and there's a maturity model for sales and marketing as well. This is the one that Gartner talks about, where in theory you start off with sales and marketing not well aligned, and then they get closer and closer as you engage better and sort of align your practices between the two organizations. And that's kind of similar to some of the consolidation that you can see in threat groups, potentially maybe happening in some of the APT groups today, where they're moving towards common quartermastering, where they're moving towards making it more difficult, honestly, for analysts to figure out where are the fracture lines between different parts of the org. My own background, and some of you will call foul on me for this, my own background is largely in smaller organizations at the very early stages of their lives. And so most of the marketing and sales organizations that I've been in have started off at that maturity level 4 and then tried to keep it as we grew into a larger and larger environment. But for your larger existing sales and marketing groups, this is the process that you can engage a consultant to help you with.
It's a goal.
Yeah.
It's a goal. So again, just to reiterate, then was a more funnel-shaped diagram and a handoff from marketing to sales. And you still see that in some organizations, as we're saying, right? That's the goal. But because of digital commerce today, customers are more informed. You're no longer relying on a salesperson for information. Just think about the way you purchase and find things online. Salespeople also aren't dependent on the marketer anymore to bring them the leads. So now it's more like a flywheel. And this diagram, we're going to refer back to it in a little bit, but just want to keep that in mind that because of digital commerce and just the way that we engage now with brands, right, we're able to effectively, both marketer and salesperson are able to engage people at different stages of the funnel, and so it becomes a loop.
Yeah, it becomes a loop, and the salespeople become more informed about what their customers might want. A quick question: who here works at a company that sells something on subscription or buys something on subscription? Right? That's the current hotness, is the subscription model, because you get that nice flowing recurring revenue. But what goes along with that is the need to not just create a customer and sell them some gum, but get them into a gum subscription so that they continue to buy it. That has also driven some of these process changes.
And I really wish that we had coined this phrase and trademarked it.
Yeah, we could be Gartner analysts if we'd done that.
But smarketing, if you Google it, there is a Wikipedia entry for smarketing, and there is a disagreement on who coined the phrase. But smarketing is this sales and marketing's alignment through constant communication. And what I want to add is, right, the constant communication today is through data. So that's where now we can have alignment on revenue goals, on what kind of content we're going to create, et cetera.
And when I first saw this slide from Campaign Trackly, I thought to myself, well, it's not as bad as the SANS slides on cloud security technologies. But the taxonomy of the tools that you need to get this sort of thing done is fairly deep. Like this is probably a couple people's worth of planning and
And I wanted to share this slide just to give you a level of insight into the amount of planning that goes into creating campaigns and tracking movements across the internet. One of the, it's this, to some people this might sound creepy, but we can effectively rate your digital. You're providing users now. As marketers, we now have a footprint. You are leaving a footprint everywhere you go, and your actions, we can track all of it. But there's, on the other hand, right, as a vendor, somebody selling online, there's a lot of planning that goes into what actions you're going to take, and also making assumptions of where you're going to move. So
Yeah, or
really
validating those assumptions. Like when I was in a position of selling a product, the more that I walked into a meeting knowing about that person that I was meeting with, what their company's business was, how their company made money, how the defense tools would be able to help them achieve that goal, the better off I was. So when people chop off UTM links from the ends of their, when they're sharing URLs with people, which I absolutely do as well, you're removing the information that digital marketers use to help us narrow in on what are you interested in, what parts of a sales or marketing conversation might be interesting to you. UTMs are, they're not something that we should go into in depth today. They have also been used by threat actors, so I'll just foreshadow that a little bit.
Yeah.
The same thing happens in email. When you get a piece of email, and I get, scads of it, right? But like when I'll frequently get from Backcountry, they sell like camping gear and stuff. I'll go on their website and I'll look at a few things. And then a few minutes later, I get this super creepy email from them that says, "Hey, do you still want those socks?" And I'm like, no. So it is effective though. Companies do that sort of stuff because that kind of conversion does work.
So before we move on to the case studies, go to the next slide. I just want everyone to take pause for a moment and can you discern whether these actions taken online are from a marketer or a threat actor? What did you think initially?
I don't know.
We'll hold that thought, right?
Yeah, I saw this slide and I was reading it over. I'm like, well, I don't feel very smart at the moment. I don't recognize this particular campaign, but it might have been one of mine.
So let's move into the case studies. All right. I think Katie has kindly shared this, what Michael refers to as an eye chart in the Slack channel. So this is, so here effectively what we've done is we've created a framework to align marketing tactics to the MITRE ATT&CK tactics. And if we just look at a couple of them, there you'll start to see some eerie similarities between the actions taken by threat actors and those of marketers for legitimate purposes. So just, encourage you to come back to this as we go through the case studies, but reconnaissance techniques that involve adversaries actively gathering information about your network and vulnerabilities. That's market research and competitive analysis. Resource development is account mapping and targeting. Who do I need to talk to?
Yeah, if I'm initially engaged with somebody who works in the SOC, as a salesperson, one of my questions is, okay, this product benefits the SOC. How does it make your life better? Awesome. What's it going to do for the CISO? Is this going to enable the CISO to have some conversation about business value? Is it going to reduce some kind of a cost or make something faster or make something better? Those are all really common sales tactics because with them, you can increase your own knowledge of your target and in a sales conversation, increase your target's confidence that you know what you're doing and can help them, which is also what threat actors like to do.
And I just want to give a shout out to Jamie Williams for giving me feedback on the previous iteration of that slide and talking those techniques out through with me. So let's look at the first case study. Again, all of these reports are linked to and shared in a repo I'm going to give you a link to later. But this one is Cloaked Ursa. This was a report published by Palo Alto in 2023. And I thought this report did a great job of really showing us, especially in the earlier phases of the framework we just showed you, this marketing tactic and the MITRE tactic.
Yeah, so one of the interesting things about this report, one of the things that resonated with a number of folks was the notion of a state actor identifying, here are the targets. If you're not immediately familiar with the lure, was a little flyer selling a BMW for an impossibly low price that was already in a country, trying to sell it, trying to use the lure to attract the attention of other diplomats that were the actual targets of the environment. So that involved a certain amount of competitive analysis. What do diplomats do with each other? Well, it turns out that importing and exporting cars is kind of hard, or it's tedious. So it's a lot easier to just, like, if you're going to get stationed in a country, it's a lot easier to just buy a car from somebody who's already there. And so they get traded around among each other.
Yeah.
And boy, if you can get a BMW for a deal, awesome.
So yeah, so we're talking about the Polish campaign, and that report, there was a separate campaign as well, but we encourage you to also later read that report. The next one is from case study 2 in this section is from the 2023 Human Factor Report from Proofpoint. There were several great examples of threat actors using techniques that reminded us of marketing tactics in that report. And I'll share the longer, more detailed case study for that report as well after this. But yeah, this one was also a good one, showing a lot of this particular threat actor. I mean, this was a good example of the earlier phases.
One of the things that popped out with me, pun included or intended on this one, was the last item there, the multi-channel engagement, where there was a malicious pop-up. One of the tools that we use in sales and marketing is that irritating little robot down in the corner, the JavaScript guy who pops up and says, "Hi, can I tell you anything about our products?" And you're like, "No, you're a robot." But that's the aspect of that is that the presence of those little chatty things does condition our audience, even those of us who are skeptical, to accept that, well, there might be some kind of interactive thing on this page that I should probably let execute.
Yeah. And then the third case study is more recent. It was published by Microsoft in later 2023 in the fall. And this one I share with you here because it showed some of the different techniques, not just the initial phases of the framework that we presented to you, because a lot of time in conversations I was having around this topic, people were thinking, oh yeah, reconnaissance, those early stages of the MITRE ATT&CK framework, they could relate that easily to things that they were familiar with in marketing. But there's actually a lot of great examples and reports where you can find all of the stages of this marketing MITRE ATT&CK framework that we shared with you, from reconnaissance to lateral movement and command and control.
How many folks here are familiar with the notion that there are some salespeople who try to get badged at their customers so that they can just go into their customer buildings whenever they want? Has anybody ever met one of those people? Yeah, a couple hands are up. I mean, it's a great tactic if you can just like have a badge, and there are all sorts of training courses and stuff for salespeople for how to teach them how to create those relationships and how to get consistent, ongoing access to a customer. And this is particularly relevant if you're one of those salespeople who has like just a set of named accounts. I sell to company A, company B, and company C, and that's it. What that got us, what partially offended me about this slide in the first place was the notion that I was doing defense evasion by trying to engage with a bunch of different people at a client. One of the exercises that you do when you're in the middle of selling middle of a selling process, especially for a product that's kind of like big and enterprise size, might be a little expensive, A sales manager will come to the salesperson and say, show me all the people that you're talking to. Like, who are all the folks? And you go, oh, well, I know this SOC analyst, and I know the head of the SOC, and I've had a conversation or two with the CISO. And then a really good sales manager will challenge that and say, show me the org chart and look for, are you just talking to a single line of people up and down, or do you have allies in other parts of the organization that if they did a transaction like this, it would help them too? Are you only helping the SOC, or are you maybe also helping compliance, or you maybe also helping legal? Those are the sorts of things that are taught to salespeople as this will make it easier for you to find a good way to help the customer. Not coincidentally, it also enables you to create larger deals. The more people you help, the more value you're creating for the customer, the more I, as a salesperson, will rock up and say, and yeah, it's kind of expensive because it's great.
So next, I want to get into some marketing tools. So again, in these charts in these slides, all of the examples that are shared are directly taken from the reports and the articles that we're sharing. So this isn't an exhaustive list, just a couple examples from some familiar sources. So link shorteners we touched on a little bit. Some examples of that we're familiar with are bit.ly, tiny URL. One of my favorites is Sniply, but there's a couple out there. Sniply. It allows you to, so I don't have to work at your company, let's say XYZ company, and I can pull up that page and add a pop-up to it, but it comes to me instead.
So the link comes to you?
Yeah. So I don't.
Okay, so you can provide a short link.
Correct.
And you're at company A or threat actor A.
Yeah.
And you want to link to an asset, which is?
You're on someone else's website.
Which is legitimate.
Yeah, so I don't have to create a landing page anymore. I can just create like an account, put a photo or close enough logo. I can link a domain that looks close enough too, and a pop-up that says talk to me.
So are we going to do that in the chat?
We could, but yeah.
I think we should.
And then we've talked a little bit about the UTM parameters. Threat actors use this to see which campaigns are most successful. We use them to track the sources, mediums, doing that extensive planning as we showed you earlier. And then of course, location tracking and geofencing.
Yeah, so like for location, I've worked at a bunch of companies where we were not ready yet for GDPR or EU DPD or anything like that. And so, we were not going to advertise anything in the EU until we had a whole lot more American customers to pay for that kind of development.
Yeah.
The obvious parallel to threat actors, right? If you're going to target people in Taiwan, then buy ads in Taiwan.
Yeah. And also that allows them to move around without getting detected in some cases.
Oh, by like narrowing the scope of, yeah, that's true too.
So we're gonna share some criminal marketing examples and then some APT marketing examples. So these two reports, one is from Cisco Talos, and the other one was a report from, I think it was Malwarebytes, and both are, describing criminal operations for financial gain. So yeah, we can go into the. So again, I'm taking these from these articles. So Google Ads, legitimate use, using it to bid on keywords to show ads to your relevant audience. And then, the malicious use, they're using them to bid on branded terms to impersonate legitimate companies. Landing page optimization is an example I just gave you a shortcut, example shortcut to avoid having to create a landing page. But because of AI, this in particular is getting better and better. They're creating fake landing pages that look like legitimate business sites and products that we recognize. So
it's essentially exactly the same thing as the phishing kits that you can license online from bad people do exactly the same thing that Marketo can do for you in terms of collecting a bunch of information, sending it to a backend, and then forwarding your target to something else, whether that was the real login page or whether that was the PDF of your product information that you wanted them to get.
And then here, A/B testing and analytics, that's when you create two types of landing pages or, websites, and then see which one performs better. You can also do this with newsletters, but right, these are used to see which phishing templates work best, and marketers use it to see which campaigns, which variants work best.
Yeah, I had an A/B test once where I put the pricing for a product up on 2 different pages, and one of them said the pricing, and the other one said this is the pricing if you work in procurement, and it was like 30% higher. I really did that.
So, and then campaign tracking, used to segment audiences for relevant messaging, and then so that also for deliverability and to bypass sometimes spam filters. They're doing the same thing.
Yeah, no, it's the same thing. And campaign tracking is also how people like us are measured, because we have to spend money to do these things. How effective is a campaign? Did we get a good return on it? Did we get an outsized return from doing a campaign this way? Like if, I don't know, you could A/B test if I have a little hang in there cat,
Right.
do I get a better response from that, or do people just mock me on Twitter?
Or did you reach the right audience?
The cat audience
Yeah,
on Snipply?
maybe. Or did you buy the right audience on a
Well, yeah.
follow?
Did I buy the right audience? Yeah.
And so here are some APT marketing examples. So the first one is APT 29, and this report was from Mandiant, also in August of 2024. And then the one on muddling mail spam, that one's from Infoblox from this month. Wanted to provide some, recent relevant examples. Yeah, next slide. Okay, so we talked about APT 29 earlier in the presentation when we were talking about cloaked URSA, and naming conventions we will touch on another day. But I really thought this was a great example of, again, right, marketers' use of different tools versus threat actors. These are essentially the same, using them to obscure malicious URLs, and marketers use link shorteners to track click-through rates. And we see this thread over and over again as we look through the different threat reports. And yeah, did you want to say anything else on?
I do. I think the link shorteners thing is also interesting. I struggled to come up with an open source of it, but I know there's been a bunch of interesting analysis on looking at the link shorteners as sort of a fourth-party collection, where you can see where an analyst can go and see, oh, this link was clicked in these parts of the world, if you have access to that sort of backend data from the shortener.
Yeah. And I have a cool thing I'll share later.
Really?
Yeah. Case study number 2, this was the report that was recently published on spoof domains. This is also, right, another great example where I'm finding more and more all of these marketing tactics also being used by threat actors. Like I'd mentioned, the timing, the campaign, we were talking just a minute ago about segmentation and campaign tracking. So here, they're also using timing campaign delivery to bypass spam filters and blockers.
So in sales and marketing, when we say segmentation, we mean dividing up the whole set of possible people that we could talk to into certain chunks that we want to take a certain message to. Like if I'm trying to talk to a C-level executive about a technology or a product, the sort of things I want to talk about with that person are usually money related, like how much does it cost and how much time is it going to save you and that sort of thing. Whereas if I'm talking to a malware analyst, they're much less worried about the budget because they don't own their organizational budget for that. That's kind of persona segmentation, is what do you talk about with which people? And threat actors do that as well.
And all this is to reinforce the notion and being more aware of the ways that we legitimately use tools. To your point earlier, what was the word you used? It conditions us to take certain actions online, and that's what they're effectively taking advantage of. This looks familiar.
The social engineers have been doing this for all time and will continue to do it for all time. One of the things that has been consistent throughout my entire career in this industry is that people want to help each other, right? That's why social engineering works. I'll call you up and say, hey, my password expired. I need you to help me with this thing. And For some of us, that is our job. Our job is to help other people achieve whatever it is that they need to do. Threat actors know that, they take advantage of it, and they're using some of the same tools that we are.
So I think maybe not an obvious key takeaway, but what I want to encourage is to befriend a marketer, a sales or marketing person, because in the spirit also of SANS and the encouraging collaboration, I think there's always something you can learn from a colleague, and I think also we're going to share some of the different tools.
Yeah.
If you go to this link, there's a GitHub repo with our abstract. Our slides are going to be shared, all the charts, the reports, everything's going to be there. And we're working effectively on a what's it called? A PDF with a list of different tools and things that we think you should check out.
Some of these tools are also specifically useful in analysis. So your organization, for example, might have access to one of the higher levels of LinkedIn over in the recruiting organization, in HR, or maybe in marketing or something, because which you can then use in a multi-go graph if you are investigating particular people or personas who are showing up in those areas. Same thing with if you need to go from telephone numbers to people's names, if you need to try to geolocate something in the world, if you have email addresses or other artifacts of your investigation where it's possible that they have been marketed to in the past if they're authentic identities, and it's kind of interesting if you have a purportedly authentic identity and it doesn't show up in any of these sales and marketing databases. Is that person just super good at OPSEC? No, that person does not exist. So we got a few minutes for AMA.
So no, don't be frightened. This QR code goes to this link, but this link.
We promise.
Hang on. So this link is at Vertex in Synapse. We've created our own link shortening tool. Thank you, Busy. So if you visit this link, that's where the GitHub repo is. And then I have some other really cool stuff I think we're both going to end up sharing some more insights and things later this week that will circle back to a lot of the parts of this talk. And I think it'll be really interesting for many of you to see also the data modeling and how these things overlap when you look at marketing and marketing and threat reports side by side.
You'll be shocked to know that Eric has a data model for it.
Yeah. Oh, this is important. If you go to this link, there's a quiz that we designed for you to tell you if you're a marketer or a threat actor. But this has been built on top of so basically the CTI analyst core competencies framework that was developed by John Doyle at Mandiant. So we've taken that and created an app so you can do a self-assessment of your skills in CTI, and then it'll also do a role analysis based on the roles that he identified traits for in his previous talk in 2022. And it'll also do the role analysis for you to tell you if you're a marketer or a threat actor. I'll be making that open source later this week so that you can also do your self-assessment, and organizations can also do mappings to different types of roles and assess when you're interviewing differently.